Well, the penultimate Old Firm derby, or Glasgow derby, whatever you like, takes place this weekend. Rangers host Celtic on Sunday in the fourth round of the Scottish Cup. John Kennedy has said he believes his side are the best in the country. Rangers have won the league. They've had a phenomenal season under Steven Gerrard. And wouldn't it be the ultimate kick in the teeth for Celtic if they nabbed the cup too? Well, here to give us his take, no introduction needed, it's Gordon Strachan. Gordon, it might be the fourth round, but it may as well be the final. Will Celtic manage to hold on to this title?
Well, it's important that they stop sorts of trebles. There's things in their mind that they want to stop Rangers doing, that's for sure. And I'm sure they would like to have done it in a cup final. And I'm sure most of the sponsors would. Again, depending what kind of crowds we've got to get and where we've got to play them to play the cup final. But it's a game that no matter where you are in life as a manager of Rangers and Celtic, it's the one thing that can buy you a bit of time. It's the one thing that gives you a wee bit of power as a manager. The players get the pride of winning, but the manager somehow gets a bit more power from that result. And if it's a result and a performance, even more power. And obviously that the question marks of who the manager's got to be, it will add to John's case, which he has a decent case to put forward, I would imagine, after the four performances, the performance I've had since he's taken over. And people might say, well, there's a couple of draws in that. Yeah, but you have to look at the performances within the draws. And you look at the number of chances they've made. I think over a period of 4 games, they had more chances that 4-game period than any other 4-game period. So that would be John's argument that the team is making more chances. So there's all sorts of things going on here. Rangers to continue to be the dominant force, which they will be. You have to call them the dominant force because they've won the league. You can argue whether they're still the best team or the best club. That's always an argument. But the dominant force is when you win the league. That gives you the power to say that you are the best team. John's obviously said that. I didn't really see his full statement where John said that he still believes that Celtic are the best side. So, and again, in the football world, when you speak, especially a manager, there's consequences to what you speak. It's different when you're in the punditry world. You have no consequences. Nobody cares what you say, really. It's something we use for a conversation for a day, and we pick it up and we throw it away. But as a manager, when you make statements or things like that, it's always there. It's always there. There's consequences of what you do and what you say. And that's the difference between being a manager and anybody else, because your opinion really does count. I keep saying the consequences for players, where they stay at the club, where they move on, where the winners or where the losers. So the manager, John said that, and you'll probably hear say, well, he shouldn't have said that and he shouldn't have said this. Well, what does he say at a press conference? Does he go in there, are Rangers better? Yes, they are. I think Rangers are far better than us and we should just get on with it. And people say, that's ludicrous. And then if you say, well, let's see how it goes. Oh, you're sitting on the fence. He doesn't give it confidence for this. So no matter what John says, then there will be people questioning it. And that's where you are, especially if you're the manager of an old firm team which is under pressure. I think Stephen can say what he wants just now because he's the champion. He can say what he wants and nobody will really question what he's got to say.
Yeah, how important is this game in the context of what's happening at the moment, Gordon? Because it's kind of a watershed moment, isn't it?
It's amazing when you find the watershed moments in your career as a manager or a player. It's not the obvious one sometimes. But yeah, it's big, as I said earlier on there, that it is, because John, there's no doubt about it, would like the job. And anybody I've met who speak about the Celtic, just say, it's a job you must try if you ever get offered it. So the longer the season goes on without any managerial clarity, then it might be stronger for John, because you've got to remember that Neil Lennon got his appointment in the shower after a cup final. So I think John will be hoping for his shower in the cup final and keeping an eye on the door at the same time.
Is he the right man for the job, Gordon? What do you think?
Well, nobody really knows about this job until you actually go into it. And there's so many criteria, you think, that's needed for an old firm manager. And you could probably, when you're doing interviews, a resume of what a guy's got, but what has to come down to it sometimes, can you deal with a fight? Because it's not like any other place. It's, as I said to people, when you're dealing with Celtic and Rangers, it's a bare knuckle fight. The Queensberry rules are chucked out the window when you get there. Whatever you've learned at all your coaching and other things at other clubs you might have been at, then it really doesn't prepare you for what's going to hit you. You think you've got an idea, but until you get there, then it's a bit different. So it's special. So you have to be kind of mentally strong to deal with this. And people think they've been tested elsewhere in their life, but sometimes when you get to I think it's even taking Stephen aback, and Stephen took Gary along to try and help him. But I think sometimes when you see Stephen's reactions, and I remember his game, they won, and he was screaming at the camera, he probably never envisioned himself doing that, but it's the intensity of these games that can do that to you. And by the way, I have absolutely no problem with it, because that's the way it happens. You've seen flashpoints with Neil Lennon and Ali McCoy, two great lads, but the game, the Glasgow game changes you a bit. So you have to watch it doesn't change you too much. But one thing you have to be ready for is a fight, a bare knuckle fight every day. Most clubs you can have a rest from it until the next press conference a week away. It's every day at Celtic and Rangers.
Well, James Forrest, returning from injury, has given the team a real boost. He's made a big impact so far. It's not confirmed that he'll play on Sunday, but how important could he be? And are there any other players you think will be pivotal on Sunday?
It's funny, I think I spoke this before, that James gives you something different. You can eliminate players, that's for sure. You also you've got work rate as well. But they played him in a different position. At the game I seen, that he just played off the striker in a bit. He wasn't a winger as such when they used to have Ben and two wingers. So it was a bit different. Or the Celtic say, right, okay, we played well against the last game they drew, and the game before that they got beat with a really scruffy goal where Callum headed on the front post. But over the two games, arguably, and it's a strong argument for this, that Celtic were the better team on these two occasions, and played a system, a diamond shape in midfield with two strikers. And I remember being at a game and somebody said, "Oh well, that means that that Tavernier and Barisic will get out and they will cause havoc." And I think the first game they got 3 crosses, and I think it's something like, I don't know, their average cross this year must be, I'm only guessing, must be about 15 a game. So they got 3 crosses. Reason being is Rangers didn't have the ball. We've had this argument before. People say, the wing backs have got to get forward and push it. Well, you can't do that without the ball. And Celtic had most of the ball, and they could go and do their thing. The game is all about winning that ball in the middle of the park, that's for sure. Then after that, testing defenders, whichever way you do it. So I would imagine that Celtic have a decision to make. Do we fit James in here? Do we go with the same sort of system we had before? But I think there might be room in there for James. But one thing they won't do is take a chance on James, because he's been out for a long time. And usually when you come back from long injuries, adrenaline gets you through the first 2 or 3 games. And then there's a kind of reality hits you that you've been out for a long time, where the game suddenly becomes a wee bit harder. But again, I think the game will be decided in the middle of the park. It was decided in the middle of the park early in the season when Rangers outnumbered and played better in there against Celtic. But Celtic, and been brave. It was brave to do that, go and play with Diamond, because when you look at it on paper, you think, oh, I'm giving up the wide positions. But the stats say from the games since I played a Diamond against Rangers, there have been a lot less crosses, which is very strange, which is because you would imagine it'd be the other way about. And the funny thing about it is the Celtic fullbacks have had more crosses, so in their 2 games than 2 guys that have been magnificent, Tavernier and Barisic. Big players. But Laxall, and I think it was Kenny last time, had more crosses than these guys. I know Tavernier's been missing at the last game, which is good news if you're a Celtic man, if any standing, whether it be manager, coach, player, or supporter.
Should Celtic stick with the diamond formation then? Is that what you think?
It's how they feel, the Celtic coaching staff. Or do they think the Rangers have went, okay, they've been winning too much of the ball in there, what can we do to? But I can't see Rangers changing. I see them being very happy with what they've got. And they'll also be saying, well, okay, Gordon, whatever you think about the crossing and all that, they'll still no beat us. So that's an argument for both sides. It's an interesting game. But I would imagine, like most things, it'll either be a mistake or something brilliant that will decide the game. Because us coaches will put on things and defensively that you can work on things that will save you from losing goals. But usually it's doing to the people up, have got a bit of imagination, can do something different. And I think that's why I think Turnbull especially has got that something different about him at the moment. He can do something that when you watch a game, well, I do watch a game, I can usually see something coming, but Turnbull can bring out something that you go, oh, like that, where'd that come from? But in the same way, I kind of expect it after watching him for a few years that he's got that. So both teams have got players that can win games. Kent, wonderful, can do things. And I've seen somebody today talking about, well, he's not worth 25 million. I think he could be worth 25 million. And some of the players.
Right? Do you?
I think, yeah. He can eliminate players. And I've seen the players that, when I look at players that Leeds have got, Rafinha, Rodrigo, who can eliminate players but still work hard, and they're at the 25 million. So no reason why he can't be in that group. I think he's got. I'd like to see his goals this season, but the goals he scored, I think the last one, I've never seen the last one, but I've been told it's been an excellent hit. But he can eliminate players, and these are worth their weight in gold. People can do that, and he's fit, and he looks like he can take things in, information in, which is great. Not for Celtic, but it's great.
What about Scott Brown? Because it could be one of the last times, if not the last time, that he leads Celtic out against Rangers. How important will it be for Scott and for the team to get results in that sense?
I don't think being the last game or anything would come into his mind. Trust me, he's a bit like Roy Keane that way. If you remember when he played against Juventus, when he knew he wasn't going to play in the final because he got booked. I think his whole thing is just winning that game of football he's playing in. I don't think there'll be a kind of, it may be later on down the line in the summer. I think, well, I played my last game for Celtic, that's fine. But I don't think he works that way. I think it's like, this is the game, and he's oblivious to what's going to happen in the future. I've watched him, funny enough, I've been fortunate or unfortunate to be at live games when I hear him, and especially at the beginning of the season, when I heard him, and I can hear him talking on the pitch, and he was reminding everybody what it was to just win games of football. So I think it'll not be it might have been if there's a bigger crowd, I'd imagine, if there's something like that there at home, it might get you, but as soon as the game starts, it'll be fine. And I think the lack of crowds and all the rest of it, that nothing will make him deviate from the fact that he's going to win, has to win a game of football. That's his only thought at the moment. Must beat Rangers before I move on. Must beat Rangers. It's the only thing that he'll be thinking about.
Do you think Celtic will do it?
I think they can do it, absolutely. And do I think that Celtic can, on the day, be better than Rangers? Yes, I do. Do I think that the better team's been Celtic this year? No, I think Rangers have been the best team. And if you look at all the reasons why Celtic, and you've got to remember that Celtic's not the only champions that have done this year. I think you look at Juventus, bang, they're about 6 in the league. Look at Liverpool, bang. Number of points difference between them and Man City. So they're not the only team that have been the league leaders and gone for something special. Juventus have gone something special. Liverpool want to get a second win, which would be huge for them. So they're not the only team that it's had. And you would think with the reaction in Scotland that Celtic are the only team who have been champions that are having a bad year. So it's just been an interesting time. That it's funny you should say that, because if you think about it, Liverpool and probably Celtic, arguably, which there will be arguments about, the best atmosphere in British football, and both teams have, looks like, there's other reasons and all that before anybody goes further, it looks like one of the big reasons. Or well, it's coincidence, and I'm talking nonsense. But there you go.